to me, many challenges that burden me. My heart center shines and calls to me. This is who I choose to be. Sometimes lessons.
Welcome to the Vibrational Alchemy Podcast. This is Penny Fisher, and we are so glad you are joining us for this week's episode. Hello, my beautiful souls. How are you? It's so good to be with you this week. As always, I don't know if I say this to you often enough, but I have so much gratitude to all of you for joining me. I have these wonderful moments of sometimes clarity, sometimes confusion during the week as I have conversations and information drops in, and I am so grateful for the privilege of being able to process all of this with you and share with you the insights that kind of just happened for me. And yeah, that's all. I love you. That's all I got for you. All right, my friends. So let's get going. Today, I want to explore a little bit this idea about lines as a metaphor for our journey along the ascension pathway. As always in my life, this idea came along as a result of a conversation that I was gifted to have with a friend of mine earlier this week. So this is a friend that I see very often at a local coffee shop. Sometimes it's just a hug and a hello, and other times we get to really sit and go deep into our lives, our journeys, our experiences. And my mind always ends up being blown. I love being around people smarter than me, right? So this friend of mine has said for a long time that he lives his life without frames. And what he means by this is that he lives completely in the present moment. He is, I don't want to say he's unconcerned with other people's belief systems, but I will say that he does not allow other people's belief systems to impact the way that he chooses to move through every moment of his life. He will absolutely dip in and out of some of these frames from time to time, right? As he navigates his job, right? Where he interacts with other people all the time and in a most beautiful way, both groups of people and individuals. He might dip into some frames as he continues to do his own deep inner work, right? And he is acutely aware of those moments where he makes those choices to step into this frame, to take on this place where he is allowing the lines around the edge of these belief systems to inform what is happening for him, what he's thinking, what he's doing. But he always does this, and this is what's so cool. He always chooses to step into the frame from a stance of curiosity. He's never doing it to judge. He's never doing it to take on someone else's frames, but just to experience it for a moment, or to be curious about it, or to allow it to show him where perhaps he's ready to release any old wounds, old identities that have caused him to live in frames. Great example, very practical example of this. Recently, I wanted him to meet someone I thought these two would hit it off as friends. And I reached out to him and just asked if he would be at the coffee shop on this particular day. I know him well enough to know not to set a time because he doesn't live his life like that. He 100% trusts in the synchronistic nature of the flow of energy. He is 100% open to receiving whatever flows toward him as information about his journey, about where he is, about how he can move forward. Again, always from this unbelievable stance of curiosity and allowing. He is just, it's a tremendous gift to be in his space. So, and this is all my paraphrase and my understanding of where he's at. So I hope I'm doing it justice and honoring him. So all of that being said, as we were talking earlier this week, he made a reference. We were talking about the journey from the illusion of a fixed reality, right, to a space where we exist as an unobstructed field, right, through which love can flow. We just are the field. And he said the coolest thing. We're in a parking lot. And he said the coolest thing. He said, I just want to read this so I get it right. He said, it's like we go from lines to dots, lines to dashes, to dots to pixels. And I thought that was such a beautiful visual that I wanted to deconstruct it with you all a little bit and think about how this roadmap going from lines to dashes to dots to pixels can actually serve as kind of a roadmap for us, leading us to love ourselves more deeply, more unconditionally, so that we can live our lives with more balance and ease. And that's what we're after, right? So think back to basic geometry. I hope I'm not triggering anybody's issues here. But in geometry, right, a line is defined as a straight, one-dimensional figure. It, by definition, extends infinitely and in both directions and consists of a set, and again, I'm quoting here, consists of a set of collinear points connected in a one-dimensional plane. Okay, so you got that picture in your head, right? We all know what a line is. If I asked you to draw a line, no problem. So when I think about my friend's orientation to living life without frames, I think about these line segments, right? Because a line by definition is infinite. And when we take a piece of it, it's a segment. So I think about these line segments that actually form the frames that define our lives, right? Frames, by definition, create boundaries. They enclose space. They hold a finite set of, and I'm going to air quote, information within them. When somebody says a frame to me, the first thing that I think of is a picture frame. And I have many of them all over my house. You can see them right here behind me. And they hold within them, they create a space within which a set of information is held, right? They can be a gazillion sizes and shapes and colors. They can have different decor. They can, sky's the limit these days. Frames are so cool. So what I want to think with you about is this metaphor of frame as a construct, a frame as the construct for our paradigms, our belief systems, these identities that we are acculturated into throughout our lives. We are raised within various frames that tell us what we should believe about the world, how the world was created, what makes a person good or bad, how should we behave in social settings, familial settings, religious settings, right? Frames create our predisposition to see the world in very particular ways. They create our mindset, very unconscious mindset, of seeing the world through the lens of stereotypes. Because they create these boundaries on how we believe people should be or should act, or how our experiences should unfold, the frames that are our belief systems, our identities, our habits, our acculturation are, again, by definition, limiting. Right? Let's take a really simple example. How many of us grew up around this phrase, no pain, no gain? Right? We are taught that the world needs to have competition. Right? And so we go out in the world and we believe that everybody has to work hard for what they need to get, or that if I can't prove myself better than someone, that I shouldn't be praised for that, right? Another one, the frame, the construct that time is linear. Or maybe, and we just did a podcast on this, I think 2 weeks ago, this idea that kindness and compassion represent weakness. Right? I mean, here's my own trigger. If I never hear this phrase, don't apologize, never apologize, never say you're sorry, it's a sign of weakness. Oh, I never want to hear that phrase again, right? Frames tell us that we need to have goals and plans and agendas and schedules and checklists. And believe me, I love those things. I love them because I can just roll through them and I feel a sense of accomplishment. Frames keep us in our beautiful, brilliant, analytical minds. They keep us focused because whatever doesn't fit the frame, whatever doesn't fit in this defined, limited space, is boxed out. And that's where we fall into judgment, right? We think something should be a different way. Somebody should act differently. Somebody should say something. And remember, all of those shoulds are really ourselves externalizing our judgment of ourselves onto other people, right? So frames serve a purpose, for sure. They're not bad. They're not good. They just are. What they do is they limit us. And so I started thinking, what if we could find a way to allow the lines that create those frames to become less solid, right? What if we could visualize that solid line with maybe some spaces built in? And I thought that was really cool, because what that means then is that the frame no longer completely contains what is inside of it. The belief, the energy, the acculturation, the training, all of that can soften and begin to flow. It can stay there if that's what we need, but we can start to allow it to soften and to flow. And remember that when we move from lines to dashes, right, because that's what we get when we start with very small spaces, our lines are no longer solid. Not only can what we believe start to flow out, so we can start to release some of those things, but new ideas, new thoughts, new possibilities can start to flow in. And again, when we stay in that place of curiosity, we allow for the possibility that the things that we have been taught to believe throughout this lifetime and perhaps even many more might only be a piece of the puzzle, that perhaps we're only seeing a piece of this picture that was in this frame. When we relax those boundaries that are created by the lines, when we start to allow the frame to dissolve, when we begin to allow ourselves to explore other belief systems, other thought patterns, other ways of looking at the world, we allow for the possibility of growth. We step more deeply onto the path of spiritual awakening. And listen, my darlings, this is not a one and off. We are constantly rediscovering where we have frames and using our spiritual tools, whatever they are, whatever works for you, to allow those lines to start to fade into dashes. And this is an iterative process. It happens over and over. That's why we talk about the ascension journey as a spiral, right? We're constantly coming back to things over and over again. As we begin to entertain the possibility that the realities that we know about from the world of the quantum, from the world of the tiny, and this is where I get all jazzed up, right? Because science is now supporting what some of my colleagues and friends used to call the woo-woo world, right? We are able to see how we can step into a new way of living in the world because we understand the world from a different perspective of reality, right? No longer do opposites attract because we know from the space of vibration that the vibration we send out into the world calls to it things that are in alignment with that vibration. We know that everything vibrates. We know that we create our reality by what we choose to see in the world. So if I choose to focus on the negative, even in the service of the positive, if I say I don't want something, right? All the universe hears is I want that. When we step into this space, we can start to live our lives very, very differently. We don't have to push back against things anymore. We notice when we are triggered into a space of greed or judgment or jealousy or fear or resentment, and we breathe into it because we know that those things are not about other people doing things to us. As the frame dissolves, we see there are no victims. We are creating our own reality, and it's okay. We're doing it so we can learn lessons, learn to love ourselves more and more and more. As we move into this stage, this phase of our journey, we allow now those dashes to dissolve just a little bit more. And now we are left with dots. The outline of the frame is still visible, right? It still exists. But those rules that we used to live by, that we used to believe defined us, begin to fade. And now we step into another stage of our development. Because we've allowed so much that is new in terms of possibility to flow in through the dashes, as that flows out like a wave now, it carries with it the understanding that, or the belief that we used to have that life is done to us. It carries that out, and what's left in its place is this deep knowing, this deep understanding that we truly can create our reality. We understand that actually we allowed those frames to be created in our lives. And if we allowed them to be created, guess what, my darlings? We are in charge of allowing them to dissolve. We have the power to allow them to be transformed and transmuted back into what they always were, which is love. And as we step into that space of allowance of our lines to fade to dashes, and now our dashes to fade to dots, oh, I can feel it. We begin to feel this sense of opening within us, this lightness. We don't need to give our power away anymore to anyone or anything. Each and every day, my beautiful soul family, you get to choose who you want to be, how you want to walk in the world. You get to choose how you respond when you are triggered, how you are going to respond when unpleasant or heavy emotions come up for you. You get to choose to feel them, experience them, let them rise and crest and fall away. You get to choose whether you want to be in imbalance or do you want to be in equilibrium. Do you want to be in a place of judgment or compassion? Darkness or light, fear or love? And listen, sweetie pies, this is not easy work. When we get triggered into those heavy emotions, it's just not fun. But the fact of the matter is, it's part of our human experience. It is part of our human journey. And as we move from lines to dashes and dots, it gets easier to see where we have allowed ourselves to be defined by those lines, by those frames of old beliefs, old habits, old wounds, and old identities. And we get to choose to send them love. And as we do this, as we drop in with the breath into our heart space, as we rest in the sacred heart chamber, as we open the portal into the cosmic matrix, and we allow that flow into our heart space, we fill ourselves with diamond light. Or we choose to step through the portal and to rest in the river of diamond light of the cosmic matrix and allow what we don't need to just be leached out of us, just to flow out of us. We find that those dots dissolve even further until they're just pixels. Okay, so maybe they're still there. And to some extent, they will continue to inform the way that we move through the world. I mean, we're talking about a lot of time of being acculturated. But what I think you will notice is that you will feel, whether it is physically or emotionally, or even in the etheric realm, you will start to feel more space. And you will get to choose how to fill that space. You can choose to hold on to old beliefs, in which case the pixels will start to come together again to form dots, the dots to form dashes, and the dashes to form lines. Or you can fill that space with curiosity, with wonder, with your beautiful life-giving breath, and ultimately with love. And finally, we arrive. Do you see it, my darlings? The more you choose to fill the space between spaces with love, the more love will expand. What's the saying? The better it gets, the better it gets. The more you have love, the more love there is. And that raises your vibration. It causes your vibration to come into alignment with the vibration of unconditional love. And now you begin to interact with yourself from a place of love. And that vibration cannot help but flowing out into the world and drawing back to you people, resources, experiences that will continue to amplify that love. And eventually, sweeties, there is nothing left, not even those pixels. They have now been replaced with pure light, with pure love. You have chosen to create enough space between the lines, then between the dashes, then between the dots, and ultimately between the pixels, that you no longer have need of any of those old realities, any of those old identities, because you can rest fully, completely in the only reality that is, and that is love. And you are love. All that you need is available to you because it already exists within you. You come from source in whatever way you experience source. And if source is love, then so are you. And as you move from lines to love, your life will change. And listen, we say this often. This journey is not about a straight line. It would be lovely, but this line, it curves, it winds around a little bit. And it would be like really unkind of me to tell you that, nope, this is just straight ahead, keep going, it's easy. When we choose to do deep inner work, the really deep inner work of loving ourselves, it sometimes will take time to come into a place of having new habits, of noticing the thoughts that we want to replace with thoughts of love. But what I do promise you is that over time, this experience of moving into contraction, right, of staying within the frame, lasts for shorter and shorter periods of time. Because as you practice noticing where you are with where the lines are, I'm just going to breathe. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to breathe, and I'm going to visualize those lines dissolving now into dashes, into dots, into pixels. The more you practice this, the more it feels familiar and the easier it is to drop into that place. And then the next time you get triggered or something really unpleasant happens, you will be able to move through it more easily. You won't lose your balance as quickly or as much. Listen, I am a firm believer that the universe does not send us tests. I don't believe in tests. I believe that what comes across our paths are opportunities to make choices. We make the choice, we act on it. There are outcomes that give us information that we consider and pay attention to, and then we enter into the loop again. My point here is that the more we do the work, we're excavating deeper and deeper, so more and more stuff is going to come up. But all that junk that is waiting to come up is simply to remind you that you are loved and you are loved, that you are an aspect of God, source, creator, creatrix, all that is. And when you choose to send love to those spaces, when you choose to sit, you change your vibrational reality. And it doesn't mean, my sweetie pies, it doesn't mean that the world around you is going to change. It's not your job to change the world. And quite honestly, I don't know that we can. All we can do is our inner work to come more and more into alignment with our hearts, with unconditional love. And as we do, we change. And as we change, as we stop burying the emotions, as we stop blaming others, as we stop living in a space of contraction or fear, our vibration shifts and it flows out into the world and offers the possibility of other people coming into alignment with that vibration. Whether they do or they don't is not up to us. But the more you stay in that place of love, the more you move from lines to dashes, from dashes to dots, from dots to pixels, and then from pixels to that perfect field of pure awareness through which love flows without obstruction, the easier it is to live your life with more balance and ease. So I invite you to start very simply by noticing your frames. And you might start by just noticing which frames are yours and which frames have been offered to you. Let's say that, given to you, and we could say imposed upon you by your family, by your religion, by your culture. Just notice them. And the next time that thoughts arise, or you hear yourself speaking words, or you notice yourself engaged in actions that are informed by one or more of those frames, just breathe. Don't judge it. Don't even try to change it. Just breathe. Let the breath flow into the spaces within the lines so that they become dashes. And just notice and note. What else could I have said in that moment? How else could I have acted? You don't have to do anything, just notice it. And then the next time you notice a frame that informs your words, your actions, your thoughts, breathe some more. And allow the breath to carry love so that the dashes dissolve, moving into dots, so there's more room for curiosity. There's more clear space on the path into your sacred heart chamber. There's more room for you to invite the flow of the cosmic matrix in. And as I'm saying this, I'm thinking if you have not checked out episodes 1 and 2, you might want to do that because they'll give you a lot more information about the cosmic matrix than I have time to go into here. As you sit in this heart space and you invite the flow of the cosmic matrix, allow this diamond light, this river of unconditional love to flood into you and allow those dashes to become pixels and the pixels to become pure love. And I promise you, my darlings, that simply by bringing your attention to this, you will begin to shift from living within a series of constricted frames to living in a space of complete presence and freedom and ease. You will still go about your lives every day. You'll go to work, you'll do the grocery shopping, you'll clean the house, you'll hang out with friends, you'll do the laundry. But you will be doing it within the energy of the quantum field, completely unattached to frames, whether they've been your frames or those that others that are living around you are trying to impose upon you as you go throughout your day. And little by little, you will begin to experience more of a sense of softness, of ease, and of flow. You will be able to experience a deeper sense of connection to source energy because you are that, and it is you. You will begin to live your life with so much more balance and ease because as the energy in your heart opens and flows, more love can flood in. And then when there are those moments of contraction, you simply drop in and tap in to the memory of the reality of who you are, who you have always been, and who you will always be. Pure love, perfect, divine, just the way that Source sees each and every one of you. And you know that it is my deep wish that you would see yourself that way. I am so grateful to each and every one of you for joining me. I am Penny Starhart. This has been the Vibrational Alchemy Podcast. And until we are together again next week, remember always that you are loved and you are love.
This is who